Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be repotting this blueberry that I picked up at Home Depot a few months ago. So I picked it up and I did sort of style it. I removed most of the foliage that was growing on it and kind of revealed some of this root base. I'll show you guys closer later once I get this out, but it's definitely got a very big spreading root base. I've got some really gnarly like scarring and corky bark down here, but there's also roots crossing everywhere, and I'm not expecting it to have a great root base. But I did really like the trunk on this tree. It's got some really cool flaky bark, almost like a crepe myrtle. And then these branches too, the coloring, and then in particular the new growth comes in this red color, kind of similar to like my linden, and it's just beautiful. So I'm doing this now. It feels a little early. We're not quite in spring yet, but this plant, the buds are seriously starting to swell, and I think they're gonna break here in the next couple weeks. So I've got a lot of other plants to repot as well. So I'm just kind of covering my bases here. So I'm gonna get this out and start the repotting process. I've chosen a pot for this. This is actually a pot that I made myself. It's made out of concrete. It's just like kind of a very natural looking pot. I know it's not the most beautiful thing right now, but they look really cool when they have plants in them just because of how imperfect they are. And also over the years, the exterior of this will, get moss and dirt built up on it. So I think it's going to look really cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some wire, screens wired in here, and then we will pull the tree in. I'm gonna need to prune some roots, and we'll get it in here and get it wired. Okay, so let me give you guys a look here. So as you can see, it fans out pretty wide here and over into this section here. They're actually nice and radial. These inner parts here are pretty like hollowed out, but I have roots growing there, so I'm gonna basically prune out these outer parts and encourage these to grow more. There's also some roots growing from the top here that I don't want, and like this straggler here I don't want. So I don't want this root there. That is growing on top of this other big root, and I want to have that exposed. I don't want my roots to start there, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And all of these other kind of like high up here roots. Spoiling the flow. Man, some of this soil is just so stuck in there. There we go. I want to uncover this beautiful bark here. It'll get uncovered over time. You know, a couple months of getting watered every day, it'll take it right off. So I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so you can see I kind of want to have that line be down here, so even this root right here can go. This root here, it's growing upwards, but I'm going to leave it because it's really the main strong root I have. And I can kind of pin that down to be at the proper level with the soil. I'll leave those. I've got this interesting knot there. I'm going to just leave that, frankly. I don't know where this root goes, but I'm going to just try and cut that off. Yeah, it hadn't really fused yet. I don't want to strangle the tree here, so any of these... where does that guy go? I don't know. Underneath. Don't really want that either. Another one coming from up high here I don't want. I'm going to remove those as well. I would like roots to come from somewhere in there, but that's a little bit higher than I want. Because in my book, this whole thing here is just interest, right? This is the fun of working with nursery stock, is you get very, you know, sort of like non-traditional things. I don't know, it's just cool. So I'm thinking it's gonna be planted at that sort of angle. Obviously it's way out of scale right now, this tree. I'm shooting to get this in a pretty small pot, and you know, obviously we're talking pretty small bonsai, but I don't have any, I've never worked with this tree before, and I'm not sure how it's going to respond to the first pruning, and so I wanted to leave some good buds on this tree. So that is a big old thick root right there. So the thick roots don't actually really do anything. Like when they get this thick, it's the fibrous small ones that are coming off that actually transport the water. These thick ones are really just for stability. So it's actually better to have these small fibrous ones coming out, and we prioritize those in bonsai over these big thick ones. Beyond that, we're growing bonsai in a small container, obviously, and so, you know, sometimes we literally have to get rid of those thick roots because they won't fit in the bonsai pot otherwise. There we go. Wondering when this mat was going to come out. And this is why I have the plastic sheet here, because this shit gets messy. But you want to, you want to get this as flat as possible underneath, because it's going to aid you in getting a nice radial spread. And that's really what we want to encourage. So we actually really don't want any roots growing straight out from the bottom. We want them growing out radially, and honestly, with what I have left, they're doing a pretty good job of growing out radially. So I'm gonna have to give these roots one more rinse. Now, I think rinsing the roots is a contentious topic from what I can tell online. I think that there are people like Ryan Neal who would, I don't think, ever fully rinse all the soil off of the tree. And that guy is an expert. I mean, he has a deep knowledge of the horticultural side of things that I'm not going to pretend I know. I'm a hobbyist. I've learned all of this from trial and error and just watching YouTube. So I will say to that, though, one of my biggest inspirations, Nigel Saunders, shout out. He regularly bare roots and rinses his trees. And I mean, his collection speaks for itself. So in my personal experience, I have found that it's not a problem. I mean, you don't want to be doing this in summer, you got to do this at the right time. And I also have a greenhouse, so I'm able to really baby this tree as it heals. If you don't have a greenhouse, you might want to wait. But again, the buds are breaking, so this is really the time to repot this tree. So I don't know. I've certainly killed trees by repotting them, but it's hard to say. I think in those cases, honestly, that I was just a little too aggressive with how much I took off, or they just got a little bit too dried out, or I don't know. I don't really feel like rinsing the soil off the roots in particular has specifically killed anything. I think if you're using good soil and you get that balance of water and oxygen right, your tree's gonna grow. So yeah, this is really just the only way I can get in here. And doing nursery stock trees, if I was buying a pre-bonsai from a bonsai nursery, I'm not going to rinse the roots, right? Because they're going to have taken a certain amount of care over the years to ensure that, that stuff, is developed. I was thinking this was like a plate here, but it's not. I want to get all of this dirt out. I don't want there to be dirt here like this. I want to reveal as much of this trunk as I can. The more trunk I can reveal, the more this is going to start to look like an old tree rather than a bush. And it's going to look like a bush for a while because it is a bush, and it was a giant bush in a giant 5-gallon pot until a few months ago. So, and when I did it, I repotted, I didn't, I got this in late fall, so it hasn't had a chance to, push out any growth after everything I did to it, which, as you can see, I took off most of this tree. I left these 2 branches because they had good movement and they didn't have any straight parts in them. All of the other branches also had good movement. There were some branches that had better movement and better taper and were much thicker, but they had really straight sections, and it was just not something that you can really work with. When you have a dramatic curve like these have, and then you have 3 to 4 inches of a straight piece, it's just, there's no salvaging that for me. So those had to go. Okay, so we can see based on our pot, we have a way to go in terms of the space. So I'm just gonna take out the scissors and we're just gonna start cutting. And I'm gonna be more heavy on this side here because there's more roots by a lot. And these are really good fibrous roots. But this tree doesn't need this many roots anymore, because this root system is what this tree has produced over its entire life, and that was created to support the giant massive foliage that this tree had before I cut it all off. But now that I've cut it all off, it no longer needs that many roots. This is actually more than enough roots, especially fibrous ones, to sustain this tree. And this is why you repot in spring, is because these buds are going to break. This tree is going to start moving a ton of water up through this tree, and when the leaves start coming out, it's going to also start pushing out new roots. And so this tree is actually going to grow very, very quickly. So I'm hoping that I get a lot of back budding down here on this stumpy part, and I can just prune it back to there and have something that's more in this sort of height range. But I'm a ways from that. So okay. So I think I've gotten that, you know, as cleaned up as I can for now. I don't really want to remove too much more. I'm gonna come on the bottom here, and there are just some big ones that I need to take out so that it can sit a little more flush in the bonsai pot. So again, I'm just going for big thick roots. I'm not trying to take out any fibrous ones at this point, but inevitably some will come with the thick ones, because that's what they're growing off of. This side over here is fine, but it's mainly this section down here. I have some gnarly roots. Just a whole spew of them right there. And I need to lower this significantly, because I'm going to want to get this in this very shallow bonsai pot. Oh. Again, I've never worked on this tree, but it might look intense what I'm doing right now. And I mean, it is. This is very traumatic, but this is the one time in this tree's life that it will ever be worked this hard. I'll never probably bare root it again. Certainly never rinse the roots again. That's why I'm doing this now. This tree came from the nursery, where it has been growing very healthily for its entire life. It's been constantly upsized, it's been in the sun, it's been getting watered every day, and it's growing really healthily. So, oh fuck. I hate when you have wet roots and it sprays back and hits you in the face. Well, I still need to make this a little bit tighter all the way around, unfortunately, to fit in this pot. So we're gonna take these in even tighter, and just hope for the best, you know? But like I was just saying, you know, it's never going to get worked this hard again, and probably for the rest of the time that I have this tree, when I repot it in the future, I'm going to be repotting it up in size, right? Every time I repot it, I'll likely just pot it up into a pot that's slightly bigger. So when we're doing this, obviously, this is not gonna, you know, stay in that pot on its own. Oh God, it was almost very bad. So one of the things that I need to do in order to get it to stay in there is I need to wire it into the pot. So I just cut 2 long skinny pieces of wire, and I'm going to prep the pot. So I've already put the screens in there. I thought I made holes in this pot for tie downs, but I can use those 2 spots, and then I guess I can just use the drainage holes. These pots are very fragile. Okay. If you'd like to see a video of how to make a pot like this, let me know in the comments. I've made a couple of these. This is a smaller one. A lot of the ones I've made are quite large. I actually just made a Japanese larch forest in one of these that I made that's very large. Similar kind of vibe to this though. But yeah, I absolutely love to make these. Bonsai pots are expensive. Concrete is very cheap. So yeah. Okay, so I always like to put a little bit of gravel on top of my, sorry, forgive my French. I like to put a little bit Okay, so I always like to put a little bit of lava rock on top of my screens just because it's never gonna biodegrade, and sometimes when I repot, I find that the screens can get a little bit clogged with akadama. So this base layer here is just enough to prevent that from building up in those drainage screens. So we need to pick a front. And although the tree leans this way, I like this front here that's showing all of this dead wood. And as far as a front for the pot, I think I like this side. However, it makes the most sense to have it over here with this part extending aesthetically, so. At this point, I am just gonna restyle it a little bit. I did this wiring. Before I actually had really an idea of what I was gonna do with this tree. So, I just wanna see if I can get a little bit of a more pleasing design now that I have this planted. Obviously the tree is leaning quite heavily in this direction. So this is my front. My goal with this tree was to kind of do a windswept design. I don't actually have any windswept, and this, just kind of lent itself. The other option here is I can do some sort of literati, but no matter what, this is going to be a more feminine form, just because of how long and skinny the growth is. And like I said, I'm hoping that I get lots of back budding on this tree. But I've never grown one of these before, so I just don't know what to expect. I'm thinking that I don't really want this branch here. I just don't really see a reason to keep that branch here. This curve right here is really nice, and I don't really want it to fork out there. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this branch off here and make a little deadwood. Okay, so this is what we have to work with. Just 4 little sub branches here. But they all have buds, so we're gonna be good to go. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. And I've got 1, 2, 3. Looks like just 4 buds that are ready to pop at this point because I cut off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buds that I also had. So removed half of this tree, but now we're looking better. I actually am really liking this kind of like side back angle here. But this is under the moss where the nicer trunk is. So right off rip, I'm just gonna try and put as much of a bend in here as I can without breaking this. That's pretty good. Wow. That's a pretty good bend. I mean, really brought that back around. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do next is we're gonna pull this guy away. Ah, this is actually surprisingly flexible. That's great. Okay, just getting some cracking there, so don't push your luck. Okay. That's looking quite good. I think what I'm honestly gonna do is just take it back to these two. I think that that's a perfect spot. And then I'll go ahead and put some wire on these. Okay, so we're just getting some cracking there. And then I really want to bring these guys back at this point. It's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna put some smaller wire on those, oh god, on those little guys. Alright, so that's what we really got. I'm happy with that. I know it's kind of crazy right now. I'm not really happy with this part. But I think that I don't like how that's the actual front. So I think this part just needs to go forward just a little bit. That's a hard spot to get a bend. That's better. So that's what we're working with. This planting is one of those things where the sphagnum moss kind of takes away from it. It's not looking too great right now, but I think over time this will look really good. I'm going to bring you guys in a little bit closer to see. We'll just give you guys a view of the tree. So, nice windswept. Get that deadwood, which I will apply some gin seal to. And then just bringing you guys into this here root base. This is what we're working with. It's quite nice from a lot of angles, honestly. So, anyways, that is the blueberry. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply some gin seal, just to take care of that. Stuff smells great. If you've used it, you know what I'm talking about. And this is gonna just seal it up. Oh, that was almost really bad. I would have made my shop smell like sulfur for months. Stuff smells like rotten eggs. Sulfur is no joke. But essentially what this is going to do is it's going to seal this up. It's going to protect this deadwood, especially because this is a deciduous tree. This doesn't have the saps and resins that the trees we would normally do gins on, conifers, have. So this is going to help protect it. It also is going to make it look very white and bleached by the sun, which is going to add to that natural look of this piece right here. So it goes on very orange, but it will actually dry very, very white. So you guys will see that in the next video. When I come back out here tomorrow morning, this will be totally white. So I'm going to go ahead and put this plant in the greenhouse. There's actually a few spots that I cracked that I'm just going to go ahead and put some wound paste on. I just don't really want to mess with it. So I think I've got a crack in there somewhere, so I'm just going to kind of cover this whole thing with wound paste. I got a crack right there, same deal. And these branches will live. I didn't break them in half. They didn't snap off. To my knowledge, when you start to hear that cracking at first, it's actually just the old dead bark breaking on the exterior, and the interior is generally just fine. So, this cut paste that I'm using here has a hormone in it that stimulates the healing of the plant, and then it obviously is sealing that, so it's creating a barrier that is preventing the moisture loss. So that will keep that alive. And like I said, these buds are really starting to break. So I don't have any concerns about this tree surviving. I guess I am just hoping that it backbuds a little bit. It would be nice to even just on these 2 branches get more backbudding. But I can also work with this as a windswept style. I mean, it turned out a lot better than I had thought it would. So if these branches survive, and even if I can just ramify the tips, this will be a really cool planting one day. But that being said, I'm pretty confident that this would backbud. So we'll have to see what happens. But that is the blueberry. Thanks for watching.